And in this session, we've got Simon Parker, who's the head of marketing at Corteva, and Ben Lowe, who's one of the resilient and ready farmers, who is from Aberdeenshire. So a key part of the Resilient and Ready initiative is learning about what works and how to apply these learns, as well as sharing these throughout the programme. One way of doing this is by running trials and capturing data across the 3 years to assess what works, what doesn't, and where we can improve. So before I hand over to Ben and Simon, I just want to let you know, as Caroline said, this session is going to be recorded, and we'll send around the other recordings for the other sessions after. We're going to do a bit of an intro with Ben and Simon and then do a Q&A, so please feel free to put any questions in the chat as we go through. So now I'm going to hand over to Ben for a bit of an intro.
Morning everyone, and thank you for joining us. So yeah, I just thought I'd give you a bit of an intro to our business. So myself and Harriet Ross, who's in one of the other breakout rooms, farm together up here in Aberdeenshire, which might give some people a nosebleed how far north we are, but it is quite a big farming area. We are probably the newest farmers within the Resilient and Ready programme. So we took on a farm tenancy about 1.5 years ago, so June 2019, buying standing crop. And that was part of the reason that we got involved with the Resilient and Ready programme. Was we're a new business, let's shape our business to be ready for what comes in the future. What we're farming here is about 160 hectares. Harriet's father is about 5 miles down the road with another 200 hectares. So we're mainly focused on arable production. I should have mentioned that both me and Harriet work off farm as well. So I'm an agronomist with Agravista, and Harriet is a farm consultant with Stratton Parker. So our kind of 9 to 5 is off farm, but they do get muddled up quite a bit. That they're both quite flexible jobs, and they both bring a lot of ideas to what we're doing on the farm. So they're both like the day job is so important to what we're doing on the farm as well. So what we're doing here is mainly crop production. So we grow milling winter oats for a Quaker contract, so for porridge, oilseed rape, winter wheat, so mainly feed, soft wheats, winter wheat, malting spring barley. Within that, we also have about 35 hectares of short-term grass lay for an anaerobic digester, and that's just to try and widen our rotation, keep grass within the rotation, because I think that's quite an important thing. Within the farm, we also have overwintered cows, so we currently have 60 cows in a shed that are fed for 6 months of the year, and we have 2,000 bed and breakfast pigs, which are 12 months of the year. And both of these are very, very important to what we're doing as well, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to close the loop, both in terms of nutrient. So we're trying to keep as much P and K on the farm as possible, but also it helps with our cash flow. Arable businesses are so difficult to cash flow that we're trying to just spread this out. So that's certainly something that we're looking at within the Resilient and Ready, is how can we close that loop and keep things going around the farm as much as possible. Obviously things are never as simple as going out and just sowing a crop. So a lot of the things that we're looking at is establishment methods. Our ethos here and our thoughts are that we generally set our crop yield on the day that we establish it. So a lot of it comes down to soils and establishment techniques. So a lot of what we've been looking at recently has been what drills we can use to establish. Can we look at strip tillage? Can we look at reduced cultivation? So that's one of the things that we've been looking at. I suppose that kind of goes hand in hand with what is coming down the line, with carbon being such a big focus. And that's definitely something that's Harriet's strength, and that's why she's in one of the other breakout rooms talking about carbon. That if we can can avoid the plough a little bit, we will do. We're quite a high rainfall area here, so zero tillage would struggle to work here every year. We really need some weather on our side. So yeah, I feel I've probably talked at everyone for a while, so I think it's best to bring in Simon here as well, and yeah,
Thanks,
make it
Ben.
more of a discussion.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. I'll just intro obviously why Corteva are involved, I suppose, really. And it comes back to wanting to understand how our current and future products fit into a sustainable farming system. And I think from our point of view, there can be no excuse as a business to sort of wake up in 5 to 10 years' time and realize that the world has changed and that we've been left behind. We need to develop products and services now that farmers and agronomists want to use and recommend, and that fit into sustainable farming systems. And as Alice was mentioning at the end there, it's key for us to understand how new legislation and government policy affects farm incomes and decisions that farmers make. So from our point of view, it's about gathering information. But in this session, we're here to talk about, I think, trials and tribulations. So what are we getting involved with, and what are we thinking about with Ben and the other farms on all the different units? I think really the Leaf Sustainability Farming Review has kicked off the thinking. It's a self-assessment tool provided by Leaf to the farmers that they've worked through with the help and advice from independent experts, and it's highlighted, I think, areas of interest for the individual farmers and potential trials work that we can follow up. We're not just looking at our products, we're looking at all aspects from rotations, cropping systems, establishment methods, cultivations, as Ben's mentioned, energy usage, right through to the more traditional inputs, if you like, of fertilizer, ag chem and seed. But through that Leaf integrated farm management lens. From our point of view, I think there's lots of places to get involved. We've got an oilseed rape, new variety that could potentially cut down at least one spray, potentially, Ben, in terms of inputs. So reduction of inputs and using varieties in that sense. We probably used to that with wheat varieties, but also now coming into oilseed rape varieties. We're looking at optonite, which is our nitrification inhibitor. And then there's many other areas that we have plans to look at with Ben, biostimulants linked to weather. That's sort of part of our building biologicals portfolio, and a 5-year aim to develop a biologicals portfolio with Corteva. There's a new grass stand product that's clover safe, so hopefully that could have benefits in terms of sustainable systems. But other areas, undersowing grass in maize, perhaps not in Aberdeenshire, Ben, but establishing new sown lays and using grass in an arable rotation is something we're interested in. And then things like establishing buffer strips to enhance wildlife corridors and protect watercourses. But Ben, do you want to just chat through that sort of cultivation system trial?
Yeah, absolutely. So this autumn we've had 3 different drills on the farm. So one of them, which would be the farm standard up here in Aberdeenshire, would be the power harrow combination drill. Generally following a plough or a primary cultivator that generally works fairly deep. We have established wheat and winter oats and oilseed rape with that drill, but with every crop we've also brought another drill in to sow another field side by side to compare the whole way through the year. So the other 2 drills that we've looked at is a horse pronto, so still moving a lot of soil, still needing a primary cultivator, but discs instead of a power harrow. And then the 3rd drill, which is very interesting, is Missouri. So it's a strip till, 1 pass. In terms of oilseed rape, we might try and do something to chip volunteer oilseed rape, but we can go straight into stubbles with the Missouri and move a lot less soil, save a lot of fuel. So what we're trying to do, obviously, we're keeping tabs on what fuel we use, what labour requirements are for each drill, and we're going to follow this through the year. It's all well and good saving £20 a hectare on diesel, but if it costs you 0.5 of a tonne in yield, it's a false economy. There's obviously a bigger picture, but we need to understand it. If we don't measure, we can't manage what we're doing going forward, especially as a new business. And I suppose what I've enjoyed about the Resilient and Ready working with Leaf and Corteva has been their understanding that a sustainable farming business isn't just about what we're doing out and about on the farm in terms of biodiversity. It's also the business. Like, a business not making money isn't sustainable. So that's constantly what we're talking about in these meetings, which is great. I suppose Simon also mentioned the oilseed rape variety. So what we've done is we've established a new variety with a new trait, and it's been put in the middle of a field around the farm standard. So we've got one variety on the farm, and then we've put Corteva's new variety in the middle, so we can compare it the whole way through. And again, we can take yields out of that, and we can see how we manage it differently. So very interesting.
I think the other piece that we mentioned is the optonite nitrification inhibitor, and how important we believe nitrates in water and utilising nitrogen effectively is going to become more and more important, particularly with sort of moves in government policy and chat around new legislation coming in. So, have you got any comments on that, Ben?
Yeah, 100%. Again, it's the basics, isn't it? Like I indicated at the start of what we were talking about, that we're trying to close the loop on the farm, and that includes a lot of bulky organic manures such as pig muck, digestate, cattle manure. So we're trying to reduce what bagged fertilizer we're putting on, but practically that makes it very difficult. So that's where another one of Simon's tools can come in and try and help us do a good thing on the farm, and understand if it works on the farm. That we have to ground truth what we're doing in a real situation. So that's what we're hopefully going to find.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both. Should we open up for questions? I mean, there's nothing in the chat. Does anyone have any questions? If not, we can ask some and keep discussing.
Oh,
yes, John. Oh, you're still on mute.
There, we got you. You're about to get a question from me. I'm very sorry. I've got two, actually. One I suppose is more for Simon. And it's always a tricky one about the sheer cost of field mapping for a tenant farmer, especially, I'm guessing it's on a relatively short-term FBT, short-term being 5 years, 5 to 10 years maybe. But are you field mapping the farm? Because I've noticed, I'm a really nosy devil, and if you go on Google Maps, you can go over the fields and you can see the farms that are field mapping just by the evenness of the crops. It's so obvious. So I don't know if that's something that you're doing in trialing.
Yeah, so up until now we haven't, and it's exactly what you said about short term. So when we came into the farm, we had to soil sample every field to understand what the pH level, the pK levels were. And some of the fields were quite low in pH. So what we've done is done a blanket application of lime to bring that up. Obviously, if we exit, we get refunded what lime we have applied to a certain extent. Our lease has actually been extended, so we are now looking at 2029, which is fantastic. So it lets us invest a lot more, and that was part of the conversation we had with our landlord, that with it being so short term, it's going to affect what we do on the farm until we have some reassurance. From this point on, we are looking at doing GPS pH sampling, but also scanning fields. Personally, from my day job as an agronomist and what I see, I think variable seed rate is fantastic, and that's something we've been looking at in terms of drills. I suppose the thing is, it's partly technology as well, with us being so reliant on contractors with us just starting up. It's looking at that option, but that's something we've discussed in meetings as well.
Yeah.
I suppose you're looking at maybe £10 to £12 a hectare for scanning a field, which you're only ever going to scan it once. So as long as I think we could do a business model that over the 10 years would pay that off, no problem.
I'm sure you're right. I'm sure you're right.
Yeah, I think we truly believe that the two main drivers in the industry that's going to see major change in the next 10 years is sustainability and digital agriculture. And I think there's a real sweet spot when the two come together, as Ben's highlighted. You can see the areas that aren't performing. You can potentially, with new schemes coming through, take those areas out of production to improve the overall profitability of the farm. And as you said, John, I think it's clear when people are mapping that they get a real good consistency across the field.
I think you really have to, as a farmer, you have to drive the mapping as well. You can't. Sorry, am I still here?
Not just pretty pictures. Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty pictures are all well and good, but you have to be standing in the field and understanding what the limitation is as well.
Yeah.
So.
Cool, thank you. We've had another question from Jeffrey. So, how does optonite work, and what degree of end savings does it bring?
Oh, Ben, do you want to tackle it, or do you want me to go?
I'm leaving that one to you.
Okay, so we've seen. Well, there's two ways of looking at it. There's increases in yield from the same nitrogen, or reductions in nitrogen to get the same yield, and we've seen sort of. Well, it depends on the conditions, but between 10 and 20% yield increases or nitrogen savings possible with the use of optonite. Dependent a little bit on the crop as well, and obviously the soil conditions and the inherent nitrogen levels. But yeah, that's the sort of target area we're looking at. But it's really, I think what we're interested in is the sort of, in systems like, well, a good example would be maize, where you would apply a lot of fertilizer in the seed bed early on, that it slows down the release of that fertilizer, and obviously then restricts the amount that's actually going through the field and into watercourses. So I think there's definite sort of sustainable benefits that we can see from using the product, not just in terms of yield and nitrogen fertilizer savings. Ben, have you got anything to add there?
No, very much. I think again, it's the basics, isn't it? It's like the product's very good, but it's down to myself applying it when we need to apply it. So yeah, the product probably provides 60% of what we're trying to do, and the other 40% lands on my shoulders, doing it right on the farm.
Absolutely. So there's a question there. Winter crops? No, both spring and winter crops. Yeah. We're up where we are in Aberdeenshire. The majority of cropping is spring barley, very much down to weather and farming systems. Whereas we're probably a 3/4 winter cropping farm, and it works for our manures as well. That we can apply good manure to oilseed rape, which does respond to early applications of nitrogen and phosphate. Yeah. So. Question come in about what nitrogen types has it been trialled on? Yeah, full range of nitrogen types. So from slurry through to ammonium nitrate. So yeah.
Well, thank you. Any more questions? We've got about 10 minutes left before we go back. If not, I will. Oh yeah, John. Oh, you're muted.
I've got loads, but I didn't want to hog everything. One of the things, have you tested the soil for organic matters before you've started?
We've not, partly because the landlord organise. Well, we have on certain fields, but as a whole farm, we have not. I probably should have mentioned the farm previously was a dairy farm, so we're extremely lucky that like, well, you can see it from the amount of potash that's in the fields, in the soil samples, that this farm has had a lot of manure and a lot of grass in its history, which is fantastic. So we're very much looking at maintenance rather than building. Let's not mess up the good job that the previous tenant's done.
Absolutely.
Is our target. And now we do have, we have a period that we can focus on. That's definitely something we're going to look at, is organic matters and how we can build that, and try and monitor what biologically is going on in the soil, because it's such a minefield that you try and fix one problem, you lift calcium, for example, and you it's to the detriment of something else. So it's trying to get a balanced soil, I suppose, and understanding what's going on there.
And are you analysing the pig manures that you're putting on? Because that's always it's always rocket fuel, isn't it, in lots of ways?
Exactly. Yeah. No. What we're doing is we're sampling a month before we apply. So physically going out and pulling back the face of the dung and sampling the middle of it, and trying to understand where we are. And it's the same, like, for example, our silage land for a biodigester, we get 1.5 times the digestate back.
Right.
To try and build that. That was part of the rental deal. It's, from a gross margin point of view, it's not fantastic, but we're getting manure back onto the farm again.
Mm-hmm.
And we get that soil past 110, and we get the samples of that. So it's all built in.
What I was thinking, as the organic matter is really high at the beginning, as you're continually improving because I'm sure you will improve the nutrient value and the organic matters within the ground could lend itself more to winter crops. You'll get a bigger drilling period. You're creating it in the soil instead of having these slumpy soils that you get in Aberdeen that stick to your wellies. Those are what I always think of Aberdeen soils. Is that not right?
Yeah, certainly. Like, I always find Scotland, it's a glacial place that you can go into one field and you've got 10 different soil types almost. That there's been so many things dumped over time with what's happened in the past, that you don't just have one soil type. I suppose the biggest challenge for us up here is weather. Like, we had 260 millimeters of rain in October.
Right.
It doesn't matter what soil you've got, you need to crack on. And like, we finished combining on the 18th of September, and we finished drilling on the 15th of October, but it was only 2 fields that we drilled in October because of the weather.
That's early for you, Ben, isn't it?
Yeah.
For harvest, I mean. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I'm only experienced in a couple of harvests. I've got most of my hair left, but give it time.
And I think as part of the program, Ben, we did sample a couple of fields intensively, didn't we? So that we've got that baseline measurement to then come back to at the end of the 3-year program.
Exactly. Yeah. So we sampled fields that we were going to be. They were grass fields, 5-year grass fields, and we've established in wheat. So one of them has been ploughed and power harrow drilled. Well, it's actually been ploughed and power harrow drilled, but half the field has been horse pronto drilled. And the other field, we came in with Missouri and established with a strip till. So no ploughing. Both of them look pretty well. The weather's obviously been a bit of a detriment to them. They're the 2 fields that were established on the 15th of October, after I think it was 120 mil of rain we'd had before that. But because they were grass with a good soil structure, they could handle that weather. We'd left them hard until we went to drill. So that, I suppose that's why we went in depth with the soil analysis there, to follow what happens over the next 3 years.
Good stuff.
Right, we've got a few more questions. Ben, another one for you. So, are you working on improved grass clover lays?
So the man that leases the grass for the biodigester isn't a clover fan for feeding into his biodigester. So we've managed to do 2 hectares out of the 30 hectares that we're doing with clover included. So we would love to. What we have done is we've undersown spring barleys with grass and clover to try and bring that into the rotation, because we're so far north, and we've obviously discussed our late combining and our short window to establish crops. We've tried to undersow stubbles in May, not affect the combining, but have a grass and clover lay come up into the stubbles to be grazed through the winter. And it's very much the cheapest that we can do, because it's within an arable rotation. We're not undersowing grass to keep it for years and years. It's just to try and get it through the winter without having bare soil. I don't know if I've answered the question, but we are trying to look at ways of getting legumes into our rotation. We don't have any legume crops available. Beans we wouldn't have combined if we'd established any. So yeah.
Cool, thank you. Then one for us for Corteva. So are the optonite trial results available on our website?
I think that's an area that we are working on, and they'll definitely be up in the spring. Hopefully, we'll get them up and on the website in the spring. It's an area of the website that we need to develop, definitely.
Yes. And then one again for you, Ben. So one of the ambitions of the Resilient and Ready programme is for participating farmers to become LEAF demonstration farms and Leafmark certified. It would be good to know how you feel about this outreach role.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I suppose one of the challenges we gave to LEAF when we started out was, from a business, was finding a premium in the products we're doing, and we see Leafmark as helping us find that premium, that we're proving that we're doing above and beyond what other our neighbouring farms are doing in terms of sustainability. And both me and Harriet, we're quite passionate about what we do, and we want to try and be good at what we do. So both of those tick our box, 100%.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And then another one, so back to Corteva. So what's the trait in the new oilseed rape variety? Is it disease resistance?
It is disease resistance. We will be talking a lot more about it, I think from mid-January onwards. So it's kind of just slightly under wraps until then. But yeah, it's disease resistance.
Brilliant.
And in terms of the optonite piece, if anybody is interested, then please get in touch. I think Alice's final slide has got my email address on, so I can forward that on to the relevant person if you'd like more information.
Perfect.
I think a key bit from my side on all these trials is that and it's back to a discussion that we had, John. It's around the increased sustainability should not mean lower profitability, and that's a myth that we definitely want to dispel. And obviously, everything that Ben's working towards is aiming to not reduce his profitability as well. So
Definitely.
Good.
I suppose one of the things I'd quite like to say about what we're doing with the Resilient and Ready programme is what both Corteva and LEAF have done for us is brought people into our business, and people always bring ideas, and that's just been fantastic from what we're trying to do as a new business. That there's nothing better than walking around the farm or sitting around the kitchen table, or this year I suppose it's been looking at a screen, but speaking to people, it's just fantastic.
Yeah, I think it's been a key learn for us, well, everybody in the program, I think, as well. It's that looking at the farm through a different lens, and new people bring new ideas, and I think that's brilliant to hear. So on that point, I think collaboration, we're definitely open to ideas and ways to collaborate further. So if anybody has got any ideas or wants to collaborate further, then once again, please get in touch.
Great. So we've had another question, which this is a good one. So are you keeping a baseline, i.e. an unimproved piece of land against which you can assess progress?
With us starting fairly recently, and trying to learn the farm, we've kind of naturally kept the farm standard. Well, from establishment point of view, of this is what we've tried and this is what we're doing. I suppose it's quite a hard question, but every field has something going on, and we've tried to keep. So I suppose we've got at least 4 fields of each crop. One of those fields we've done as our farm standard as would look at it, and all the other ones we're doing different things in terms of establishment or varieties or how we'll manage that crop. Like our thoughts as farmers are, and I've said it, we set our yield when we sow it, and we're manipulating from that point on in terms of nutrient applications and sprays. So again, we might have established 3 fields the same, but we're gonna tweak all 3 of those fields and monitor them the whole way through, and then you look at yield maps at the end of the year and understand what's happened and try and pinpoint what we've done well and what we haven't.
Yeah, great. And I guess a really important part of this is learning and capturing those learns. And what we're trying to do is, as you know, we're having, like you say, lots of meetings and discussions and capturing across all the farms these learns as we go, so we can look back.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's not like we can all take our eye off the ball and be too busy with harvest, because we've got Simon asking us what our results are and catching us on a group meeting trying to find out what we've been up to. So it's good to have that pressure.
Not too much pressure, I hope, then.
No, well, you can't come up and see us at the moment, so it's great.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
We've got a couple of minutes left, so yeah, we've got a question on how will results be reported. I don't know who wants to answer that one.
I think, well, hopefully we're working together with the farms, and we'll be producing reports as we go through the years, as we get to the end of the growing season, get the harvest results in. But I think, as Claire said, it's about keeping a list of those learns and developing the program as we go through, and adapting and changing according to whatever the year throws at you, and dependent on the different farms as well. So it's really it's very much farmer focused and farmer driven. We're not trying to implement systems on farms that don't fit, or use products that don't fit. It's very much what the guys are interested in and what works. But yeah, we'll be reporting obviously the findings, and I think it's important to report on the good and the bad, what did work and what didn't work. I don't know, over to Ben for a few more comments probably. Yeah,
like I totally agree that we have to try and show everything, and results are portrayed on lots of different levels. So one of them would be like taking short videos, and just like a lot of social media, it doesn't cost anything. We can upload things quickly, and we're getting a lot of training to try to improve our short videos. But if we're out in a field and we see something good or we see something bad, just take a video of it and talk about what we're doing. And that's probably as good a way of getting points across as anything. So I suppose that's, for what we're doing up here, that's something we're going to try and focus on as we go forward and try and get better at it.
Brilliant. We've got 10 seconds left, so I guess thank you very much, everyone. I hope you found that useful, and yes, we will be sending around the recordings after.